Producer We the People News. Alright, it's just a learning video to give some ideas what's going on in our world today. Taxes, citizens, persons. Alright, and if you look up these numbers, well, you'll find out what's truly going on behind closed doors, even though they came out, plain out, spoken to us. We're just not researchers. And we don't never really find these things, right? So, I might have these things pop up every so often due to part of my studies. Alright, let's go.
The sales tax
It's a learning video.
And it originated in 1862. It's located at 12 Stat 432. Which was approved on July 1st, 1862. Chapter 101. An act to provide internal revenue to support the government to pay interest on the public debt. And it goes on that for the purpose of superintending the collection of internal duties, stamp duties, licenses, or taxes imposed by this act or which may hereafter be imposed, and of assessing the same. An office is hereby created in the Treasury Department to be called the Office of Commissioner of Internal Revenue. So that's where the Commissioner of Internal Revenue was created. Anyways, this act goes on. Section 4, it says he's got to get a bond. Section 8 starts talking about persons. And says that if any person owning, possessing, or having care or management of property, goods, wares, merchandise, articles, or objects liable to pay any duty, tax, or license shall fail to exhibit a list when required. Okay, so it's persons, okay, it's corporations. Section 26, this is again the beginnings of Title 18 United States Code, of what is now Title 18 United States Code, Section 241 and 242, violating your rights under the color of law. And this is basically the original, one of the original, the one in 1861 that I did in regards to property taxes, and this one in regards to sales taxes, are where that originated from. So now they're talking about ad valorem duty in Section 68. That's at 12 Stat 432. So that on and after the first day of August 1862, every individual, partnership, firm, association, or corporation, and any word or words in this act indicating or referring to person or person shall be taken to mean and include partnerships, firms, associations, or corporations. So it's all corporate. Corporations have to pay the tax, and that's true even today. And this is and it's talking about ad valorem taxes. We'll talk about ad valorem taxes here in a minute. Anyways, there's a whole list, and this act covers a bunch of things besides just ad valorem taxes. It also covers business taxes, all sorts of licenses, all sorts of stuff. And that's all the topic of it in another video. Anyways, so it's talking about on all paints and painter's colors, dry ground oil or paste with painter's colors, water not otherwise provided, 5% ad valorem tax. On pins, solid head or other, 5% ad valorem tax. On umbrellas, parasols made of cotton, silk, or other material, 5% tax ad valorem. These are all ad valorem taxes. And this is only a small part of the list. The list goes on for several pages. An ad valorem tax is a tax proportional to the value of the thing taxed. Okay, and so how best to determine the value of something taxed is you sell it, and then you know what it's valued. A person is only a fictitious entity. This act talks about persons, and it defines what persons are, even in the act, and they're all fictitious entities. And this is actually another act, 1871, which is 16 Stat 4031, and an act prescribing the form and enacting and resolving clauses of acts, resolutions of Congress, and rules of construction, therefore. And be it further enacted, all acts hereinafter passed, the word person may extend and be applied to bodies politic and corporate, which means it is corporate. An act concerning the construction of statutes and Arizona statutes. Now, this is actually a New Mexico statute, but Arizona was originally part of the New Mexico territory. And so, anyways, in section 1, it says that is the construction of statutes in this territory. The following rules should be observed. The word person may be extended to bodies, politic, and corporate. And then in Arizona statutes, this is where, this is chapter, 656, which was approved February 24th, 1863. This is a 12 Stat 664, an act to provide a temporary government for the territory of Arizona. And it talks about, together with all the legislative and acts of the territory of New Mexico not inconsistent with the provisions of this act are hereby extended to and continue in force in said territory of Arizona. So that previous act still applies in Arizona. When used in this title, where not otherwise distinctly expressed or manifestly incompatible with the intent thereof, person, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. And that's the modern day Internal Revenue Code. And Title 1, United States Code, Section 1, which is, by the way, positive law. The words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Well, you know, if you understand the law of justum generis, individual is a fictitious entity because all the rest of them are fictitious entities. But we're going to talk about the word includes in a minute. Person means an individual, firm, partnership, association, corporation, and Texas Transportation Code. Person includes a corporation, organization, government or governmental division or agency, business, trust, estate, trust, partnership, association, or other legal entity under the Texas Government Code. Include, or the participial form thereof, is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclosed, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. Include under the American Dictionary of English Language, 1828, Noah Webster. To confine within, to hold, to contain, as a nut, shell of a nut includes a kernel. A pearl is included in the shell. To comprise within, to comprehend, to contain. Okay, and then Black's Law Dictionary says basically the same thing. And so the point is that include is limiting. All state statutes are actually federal statutes under the international law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction. Federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of the state. This is taken from a document called the Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, which there's two parts. One part is like about 1,000 pages, and the other part's like about 600 pages. A text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. And that's on page 158, and it goes on page 165. Talks about state and federal venue discussed. Civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to a federal district court under sections 24 and 28 of the former judicial code, now sections 1331 and 1441 and Title 28 United States Code, giving jurisdiction to such courts of civil actions arising under the laws of the United States. And so the point being is that all state laws are federal laws, if you're a U.S. citizen, and here is why. And this is National Mutual Insurance Company of District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, nationally covers those citizens, even when one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And so, if you're a U.S. citizen, then there's no state of Arizona, there's no state of Texas. You're in D.C. no matter where you're at, and that's why all state statutes are for U.S. citizens. Matter of fact, if you all the state statutes, if you read them, it talks about the person and which is a U.S. citizen. This is Washington Code in this state and within this state. In this state and within this state includes all federal areas lying within the exterior boundaries of the state. Okay, so when they're talking in their statutes, it all goes through all the statutes, and it says in the state or within the state, and whether it's upper and lowercase or all block capital letters, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's federal areas, it's for U.S. citizens. And this is Texas tax code, okay? In this state means within the exterior limits of Texas, and includes all territory within these limits ceded to or owned by the United States. But if you're a U.S. citizen, it means everywhere. Economy, plumbing, and heating. Persons who are not taxpayers are not within the system and can obtain no benefit by following the procedures prescribed for taxpayers, such as the filing of claims for refunds. The revenue laws are a code or a system of regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter, without their scope, no procedures are prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal. They are neither the subject nor the object of the revenue laws. Okay, so the question you have to ask yourself is, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a taxpayer? Because a U.S. citizen is a taxpayer. If you're not a U.S. citizen, then you're not a taxpayer, by definition. This is the D.C. Code, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, and it says the legal estate to be the Cestui Que Use, which is a Cestui Que Trust. That's found in 31 Stat 1432 and Section 1617. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive Cestui Que Use, or Trust of U.S. Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of USA and USA Inc. And that's found in Congressional Record, June 13, 1967, page 15641 through 15646. Now, for all of you, those people that want to go and look up the site, that's a summary. And you have to read all, 5 pages, and if you've ever seen the congressional record, that's a lot of reading. Anyways, every taxpayer is assessed to Cestui Que Trust having sufficient interest in the preventing an abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. So, and it goes on. This is in the D.C. Code again, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, and this is found at 31 Stat 1189. And that's the very beginning, actually, and it was further enacted that interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. It might be correctly said there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen in any one of the states of the Union is held to be called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. The term individual means a citizen of the United States and an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. That's Title V under the current codes. Title V, United States Code, Section 552 AA2. And then if you go to 552 AA13, it says the term federal personnel means officers, employees of the government of the United States, member of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. So the thing to consider here is that what they're saying is that federal personnel is anybody that has a Social Security number. Okay, so the question is do you have a Social Security number? A U.S. citizen is a Cestui Que Trust, so a Cestui Que Trust has a Social Security number, but do you? And I can tell you that I don't. And I went, my first case that I went to the Supreme Court, I went and filed an affidavit, and it said that I swear on the penalty of perjury I do not have a Social Security number. I have never had a Social Security number, and I don't. And there was no problem because it's the number of a trust, and so you have to understand that. And that's what they're talking about here is that it's all for a trust, okay, and it has nothing to do with me. Sales taxes were originated by an act of Congress in 1862 for U.S. citizens. State statutes are actually U.S. statutes, so any state statute that talks about sales taxes is a federal statute. If you used, or the billed priests in the so-called courts can presume that you use Federal Reserve notes to pay for anything, then it's not paid for. Title 12, United States Code, under their code, Section 411, says Federal Reserve notes let's see here, are to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances to the Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agents as hereinafter set forth, and no other purpose are authorized. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States, and so it's if you're using Federal Reserve notes, then you're a government employee, really, or you're a bank, and you shouldn't be using them. There's a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. So when you use Federal Reserve notes, you discharge the debts with limited liability. Federal Reserve banknotes and other notes constituting a part of the common currency of the country are recognized as good tender for money unless specifically objected to. It's all by consent. And when you use them, you've consented. The dollar, the legal currency of the United States, the unit of money consisting of 100 cents, the aggregate of specific coins which add up to $1, coins being the operative word. In the absence of qualifying words, it cannot mean promissory notes, bonds, or other evidence of debt. Okay, so again, a dollar is not, a Federal Reserve note is not a dollar. Banknotes constitute a large and convenient part of the currency of our country, and by common consent, serve to a great extent all the purposes of coin. In themselves, they are not money, for they are not legal tender. Well, they passed an act that made them legal tender, but they're still not money. And yet they are good tender unless specifically objected to as being notes merely and not money. And it goes on, they subserve the purposes of money in the ordinary business of life by mutual consent, express or implied, to the parties to a contract, and not by binding force of any common usage, for the party to whom they may be tendered has an undoubted right to refuse accepting them as money. Nobody has to accept Federal Reserve notes. Banknote contracts. A banknote resembles a common promissory note issued by a bank or corporation authorized to act as a bank. It is, in fact, a promissory note. Actually, these ones aren't even Federal Reserves, are not even that. But such notes are not, for many purposes, to be considered as mere securities for money, but are treated as money in the ordinary course and transactions of business by the general consent of mankind.
All right, we're going to stop here. You got the basic idea, right? So, there we go. Alrighty. And I looked these things up a long time ago, and he's pretty accurate on everything. Again, at the time, I didn't have a printer or really so much as a good computer. I just fell in a rabbit hole and just kind of looking at things up and didn't keep everything on hold. So it's good to know that people are doing this on YouTube. It kind of reminds me of things. But this is Diesel Food with the People News. Until next time. Bye, y'all.